everyone, and welcome to thorough newspaper analysis brought to you by LawSikho. Let's see what articles are important from the Indian Express and the Hindu dated July 27th, 2020. These are the three articles which actually talk about the chilling effect of criminal contempt. So basically, they are trying to talk about the criminal contempt, the law dealing with criminal contempt, and the recent the recent steps that have been taken by the Supreme Court in order to bring the cases in priority, wherein leaving behind various other trials and cases that were maybe of more importance, the court has taken this decision to take up the cases related to criminal contempt. And how much does this suffice the very purpose of Supreme Court will be discussed in here. There are three articles from the Hindu itself, all are the editorials. The first is the chilling effect of criminal contempt from the Hindu, which has been written by Justice A.P. Shah, who is a retired Chief Justice in Delhi Court. Then the motorcycle and the art of court management, again from the Hindu, which is written by Sriram Panchu, who is a senior advocate, Madras High Court. This also deals with the same matter. And third, scandalizing as contempt, which is again from the Hindu and written by Hindu itself. All of them are on page number 6 and deal with the same topic, which is of the criminal contempt. Then second, it's a very nice and interesting topic and very important topic to be discussed about is Afghanistan's Sikhs and Hindus, how many remain, why they want to leave. Basically, this talks about the religious minority of Sikhs and Hindus who actually are living in Afghanistan currently, though many of them have already fled and they have already left the country, but some still stay and some still stay over there, and they have to face a lot of intolerance and religious aggression on being Sikhs or Hindus. Now, why does that happen, and what is the current scenario of the situation? What can be the impact of this on India and Afghanistan, and the relations between the two countries will be discussed in here. Then finally, we have the news and flash column, which will talk about the small crisp news points which are important for our prelims exam. But before that, let's just go through the LawSikho courses, wherein we have various courses for you. And also we have the Lord of the course, which is the Judiciary Test Prep course, wherein we are giving you amazing judiciary coaching and judiciary classes for that matter, wherein you can prepare for your exam very efficiently. Further, you can currently right now go and visit the official page, that the link to which is already there in the description box, and you can download for yourself free study material, which is beautifully drafted and totally aims towards the requirements of the exam. Then we have various other courses for CLAT, SEBI, Bar Hacker, which is for the All India Bar Exam, etc. But the main center of our discussion here is the Judiciary Test Prep course, which should be viewed by all of you. With this, let's discuss that what is the multiple choice, which is related to the content that we will be studying today. The question is, Operation Vijay is related to, first, capturing of Goa, second, capturing of Daman and Diu, third, Kargil War, or fourth, all of the above. Just make a guess here, and if you're able to answer this, write down the answer in the comment section, and we will be discussing a topic related to this today, and let's see that who is able to answer this question. Then this is the descriptive question for the day. The law of criminal contempt in terms of today has become obsolete in India's context. It needs to be revised in order to restore the freedom of speech and expression as a fundamental right. Comment. So basically, you have to understand that what is the law of criminal contempt currently in India, why can we say that it has become obsolete and should be refurbished for that matter, and how is it becoming an impediment, the current format of criminal contempt law is becoming an impediment in the exercise of this fundamental right of freedom of speech and expression. This has to be written within a word limit of 250 words, and it can very easily be accommodated in the comment section below. So do write it down, and we will be reviewing the answers from the aspirants. With this, let's quickly start today's discussion. First, let's see that why at all this topic of criminal contempt is in news these days. So basically, the Supreme Court has initiated a suo motu proceeding. As we know that what do we mean by suo motu? Suo motu basically means taking cognizance by its own self. Basically, when the court itself brings into the action or trial of something, or it discusses a fact or any ongoing situation on its own realization. That is called as suo motu cognizance. For example, recently the Supreme Court took the cognizance of the plight and the sufferings of the migrant workers. So that can also be considered to be as a suo motu cognizance or suo motu proceedings. Similarly, here the Supreme Court has initiated another suo motu proceeding for criminal contempt against Prashant Bhushan. We know that Prashant Bhushan is also a lawyer, also he is an activist, and recently he put up 2 tweets on Twitter, due to which a case of criminal contempt is running against him. And then it said, the court has said that these tweets, we'll just see that what these tweets actually were. They have brought the administration of justice in disrepute, which means it has disrespected the administration of justice, and are capable of undermining the dignity and authority of the institution and the office of the Chief Justice of India in particular. Now, before we try to understand this, these are the tweets that Prashant Bhushan had made. First one was, when historians in future look back at last 6 years to see how democracy has been destroyed in India, even without a formal emergency, they will particularly mark the role of Supreme Court in this destruction, and more particularly the role of the last 4 Chief Justices of India. So this was his first tweet, and this was the another one. Here we know that a picture of our current Chief Justice of India, Mr. Sharad A. Bobde. It went viral, wherein he was riding this bike, so he actually criticized that particular point as well. But then why do we actually need to revise this law of contempt, and why actually it is considered to be such a big impediment? That has to be understood, being judiciary aspirants or being anyway connected to law. Firstly, the definition of criminal contempt in India is extremely wide and easily invoked. Basically, what happens is that when there is any provision which is so wide in nature, there is a possibility then that it will be invoked, or it can be brought into use every now and then. For example, let's just take a very common example to that. If we are talking about grievous hurt, so basically currently the situation is that under the IPC we have a very nice and full-fledgedly explained definition of grievous hurt. But for example, let's assume that the very definition of grievous hurt was explained like causing any hurt. So basically these 3 words, causing any hurt, it makes the entire concept of grievous hurt very wide, and the scope is enlarged to multiple levels. Due to this, what can happen is that any particular kind of hurt can be counted under grievous hurt, and the proceeding can be initiated. But to avoid that, definitely we have definition which is very concise and very crisp and clear for that matter. But unlike that case, in India, the definition of criminal contempt for that matter is very wide, and it can be very easily invoked or brought into use. And there is an explanation given to this, that truth and good faith, which definitely can be considered as they can be considered as exceptions for that. For example, when we discuss about the case of defamation, at that time, if there is any fair criticism, any truth is being spoken, or something has been spoken in good faith, that is counted under as an exception to defamation, and the person saying so, saying so in such belief, shall not be held liable for defamation. But in this case of criminal contempt, when we talk about truth or good faith, they were not recognized as valid defenses until 2006, when the amendment was done to the Criminal Contempt Act, and after that only these 2, which are probably the most genuine defenses that could be available, even they were not available until 2006, and even till the current date there are a lot of anomalies attached to it. Also, Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer, he also termed the law of criminal contempt as having a vague and bordering jurisdiction with uncertain boundaries. And third, contrary to the democratic system, which recognizes the freedom of speech and expression as a fundamental right, this very law of contempt, which puts so much restrictions, or to say such immense pressure on the person who is even telling his own opinion or his own views, even that person can be held guilty under this law. Let's see that what is the definition of the criminal contempt as per section 2C of Contempt of Courts Act 1971. So this also has to be kept in mind, that which section of the Contempt of Courts Act 1971 describes or defines criminal contempt. So it is section 2 clause C. It reads like, Clause C reads like, criminal contempt means the publication, whether by words spoken or written, or by signs, or by visible representations or otherwise, of any matter or doing of any act or any other act whatsoever which, firstly, scandalizes or tends to scandalize or lowers or tends to lower the authority of any court, or second, prejudices or interferes or tends to interfere with the due course of any judicial proceeding, or thirdly, interferes or tends to interfere with or obstructs or tends to obstruct the administration of justice in any other manner. So very clearly in this very definition, we can see that there is no clear and concise definition, or there is no clarity as to what amongst these or under this can be considered as criminal contempt. So it may many a times depend upon the, to say, discretion of the court to take anything as contempt or might not take any other thing as contempt. So this has to be made very clear, because the current definition that we have is very vague and also very wide. Then we should also understand that this concept of criminal contempt in contempt in entirety also has become obsolete in various foreign democracies. And for example, the example of Canada, USA, and England. And England for us is very important, because this is the very source from where we actually took this idea of criminal contempt, and they themselves have made it obsolete and have moved forward, but we still are on the same page. Firstly, they've given the example of Canada, where tested on real, substantial, and immediate dangers to the administration, and thus it is done in very practical sense, and thus they do not really rely upon this law of criminal contempt anymore. Further, in USA, there is no longer it no longer uses the law in response to comments on judges or legal matters, and therefore there is this case of Bridges versus California of 1941, where it was held that an enforced silence would probably engender resentment, suspicion, and contempt for the bench, not respect it seeks. Exactly. And exactly what even the author tries to say here. And also Arundhati Roy very recently, she also mentioned that the court, if it is thinking that putting a bar or silencing the people would something that would make them respect the authority of court, it is just not the case. The respect comes from within, obviously, because you cannot really force anyone, or you cannot really punish anyone for not respecting an authority that way. So all in all, even in this case also, it was held that it is not actually this thing, resentment, suspicion, or contempt of the bench, and it can never bring into a sense of respect for such authority. And thirdly, England, in the case, it was a very famous spycatcher judgment, wherein the House of Lords, the court refused to initiate contempt action, and it abolished the law in 2013 after the UK Law Commission 2012 recommended abolition of the law. So we should really think upon it, because very recently, like for example, we decriminalized Article 377 of our Constitution, Section 377 of our CRPC, wherein it was made to say homogeneity or homosexual likelihood or likeliness was decriminalized at least. This thing was done years ago in other countries, but it took us so many years to actually come to this conclusion. Similarly, currently also we should pay heed to this as to why other countries have abolished this law of criminal contempt, and how much is it important for us as well to do so. With this, we are done with the discussion of this current article. Let's talk about the second one, which talks about Sikhs and Hindus in Afghanistan. Recently, a terror attack by IS gunmen, which was Islamic State gunmen, it killed 25 Sikhs at Gurudwara Har Rai Sahib in Kabul, which is there in Afghanistan. The communities have made multiple appeals to Indian government to immediate evacuation. Basically, the Sikhs over there and also the Hindus, who are a very, very small minority amongst the population of the Afghanistan, they have to face, and they have been facing, various kinds of religious attacks for that matter since many years. And very recently, this terror attack which killed 25 Sikhs at the Gurudwara Har Rai Sahib, after that the people are really petrified over there, and the minority of Sikhs and Hindus are very petrified, and they are actually appealing the government for immediate evacuation to bring them back to India. Let's first understand that how did Hinduism and Sikhism reach Afghanistan. Let's see about the Hinduism first. So the Zunbil dynasty, which is related to which is a Hindu dynasty, it ruled Kandahar to Ghazni in Afghanistan from 600 to 780 AD, and later by Hindu Shahi dynasty, which was replaced by Ghaznavids. Basically, it was the Hindu rule that moved there, and through that the Hindu population migrated over there. And then in 1504, Babur captured Kabul and referred it as Hindustan's own market. So basically, it came into the ambit of India as well. Then let's see for Sikhism. Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he visited Afghanistan in early 16th century and laid the foundations. So this was how Sikhism moved to Afghanistan in the early 16th century. Then 7th Guru, Sikh Guru Har Rai sent Sikh missionaries to Kabul, and that is how Sikhism actually found its feet in the Afghanistan. But then we need to understand that when and as to also why they did leave Afghanistan. So this also needs to be understood as to, firstly, they moved over there, but then what were the circumstances that compelled them to leave Afghanistan? In 1970s, there were 3 lakh Sikhs and Hindus in Afghanistan. So keeping in mind the time of 1970s, the total number of Sikhs and Hindus in Afghanistan was 3 lakhs. And believe me, you would be surprised when we will know the scenario as to what is the current number of Sikhs and Hindus currently staying in Afghanistan. We'll just deal with that. And in 1988, a terrorist attacked Gurudwara in Jalalabad and gunned down 13 Sikhs and 4 Afghan soldiers. In 1989, Gurudwara Guru Tegh Bahadur Singh, again in Jalalabad, was hit by rockets by Mujahideen and 13 Sikhs were killed. After 1992, large number of Afghan Sikhs and Hindus started exodus, which means they started moving out of the country and they left the country. And under the Mujahideen, there were widespread kidnappings, extortion, property grabbings, religious persecutions, etc. Now let's see that what is the current. So we can see that there is a timeline stretched which actually aimed at petrifying and attacking these minority of Hindus as well as the Sikh community that was staying in Afghanistan. Let's see that what is the current situation and what is the future ahead. 18,000 Afghan Sikhs are living in India. So basically, these are the Sikhs who are from the Afghan origin and they have actually fled back to India. Back as in they have come to India for their own safety. And 50 to 60% have got citizenship, and the rest are living either as refugees or under long-term visas. Then, as to what we said, that you would be surprised to know that currently only around 656 and only 50 Hindus are left in Afghanistan. You can just understand that how much small this number is, keeping in mind the entire population, and what is the vulnerability that they are open to. And finally, the amended CAA 2019 Act, which is the Citizenship Amendment Act, will help the Afghan Sikhs and Hindus get citizenship. As we know that the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 would provide citizenship to 6 religious minorities who are Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, Parsis, Christians, and also Sikhs. So these Sikhs and the Hindus who would be coming from Afghanistan will definitely be able to get citizenship under the CAA 2019. So this was all for this understanding, and we should understand that India enjoys a good relation with Afghanistan, and also it is trying more and more to develop these relationships. Now, as we know that India was developing the Chahabar port, and also it might join again in the development of the Chahabar rail project. And also India is investing a lot in building the infrastructure, education, etc. in Afghanistan, so that it can grow as a nation and also can help India curb the problem of terrorism which comes from the side of Pakistan. Thus, it is important that India tries to understand that, and that Afghanistan also understands that it is important for it itself that it treats the people who have in some or the other way origin from India, that they should treat them properly so that the relations between these two nations can be maintained properly. With this, let's see what do we have in news and flash today. So on 26th July, we celebrate the Kargil Vijay Divas. As we all know that there was a Kargil war between India and Pakistan in 1999, and India won over Pakistan. So it was on the day of 26th July 2020 when we marked the victory. So it marked the Kargil Vijay Divas in India. The day marks India's victory over Pakistan in the Kargil war on 26th July 1999 along the line of actual control. Basically, this is the line of actual control, as we can see here. Here was the Kargil, and here is Kargil, and here the war was actually fought between Pakistan and India. And this is line of control, and this, as we all know, we have been discussing very extensively. This is the line of actual control, which is in to say dispute with China, and this is the LOC, which is a line of control with Pakistan. So Operation Vijay. Now here you might be able to get the answer to your question for the MCQ today. Operation Vijay. The first Operation Vijay was launched in 1961 that led to the capture of Goa, Anjadiva Islands and Daman and Diu. As we know that Goa, Anjadiva Islands and Daman and Diu, they were not originally, they did not come into India's territory as and when we became a sovereign nation and we became independent in 1947. They actually joined later on, and it was in 1961 when Operation Vijay was launched, and with this the territories of Goa, Anjadiva Islands and Daman and Diu came back to India. The second operation was launched in 1999, wherein we took this all territory, it again came back to India. Then Operation White Sea. The Operation White Sea was also launched during Kargil War 1999. So this may be a very potential prelims question, wherein it might be asked that Operation Vijay is related to, so it would be all of the above. And then the Operation White Sea is also related to the Kargil War 1999. With this, we end today's session. We hope it was an informative session for you. Stay tuned with LawSikho for such more sessions. Thank you.